Welcome to another episode of Spatialedge AI Industry Show. I'm your host, Pierre Le Roux, and today with me I've got Nkululeko. He is an executive head of Big Data and AI at Vodacom. Previously, he was a lead data scientist for the international markets in Big Data and AI, as well as director of data science at Visa. And he spent some time as a data scientist at Data Robot, Vodacom, and Standard Bank Group. Welcome.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on this podcast. I think it's been a while, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
I actually want to kick off kind of with a question of what makes you you. Like what, like maybe like who are you? Where do you come from? What is it that makes you you?
Yeah, I think I would say first and foremost, a problem solver. I'd like to think that whenever there's challenges or issues, I like to be in spaces where there's problems that need to be solved, and using AI and machine learning as a tool that I would like as a tool, right, to solve those problems. Above that, I'm just a normal guy who grew up in Johannesburg with an interest for machine learning and AI. I've been steadily growing my career in this space. And what makes me me? That's an interesting question. I think the biggest thing for me would be trying to make sure that I make an impact. And that's what makes me me. I think the idea of whatever I do, the work that I do, comes to some greater goal or makes a difference. That would be, me.
A meaningful outcome.
Meaningful outcome, yeah.
That is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, what better space, I guess, to be in than in AI, which is like the forefront of technology, where things are happening, and also at a company where, I mean, there is a lot of data, there is a lot you can do, there is a lot of subscribers in South Africa.
Yeah.
So obviously, yeah, like looking at specific problems, focusing on problems, solving those problems, and then having an impact. And I guess one of the other questions there is, as your role, I mean, it's quite a senior role as well. I'm assuming it also means you have a lot of responsibility that to look at different projects, to do different things, and then to be able to make that, and you have the tools and the capabilities and the means to be able to make that impact.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's the role. But for me, it's definitely about what's the strategy of the business, where the business is trying to go, and how do we plug in all these cool models and things that we have to make that impact. So basically, I'd say I see myself more as a conduit to like take all these bright data scientists, data engineers, machine learning engineers also that come from your company, Spatialedge, and see how do we solve those particular problems. So that would be my essence or view of what my role is in the company.
So in some ways, facilitating, getting it together, getting the groups together, getting the problems on the table, pushing it towards a certain direction.
Yeah.
So it was like the vision, like where do we want to go to, what do we want to achieve, and then how.
Yeah, and ideating and finding,
kind of thing.
You know the number one term, finding the low-hanging fruit.
There we go. Yes, the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Actually, on that, what I wanted to ask was, is there a specific skill you believe has helped you a lot with the role that you are in?
Yeah, I think it's about a big thing is like listening, right? And unpacking a problem. I mean, there's always this thing about doing machine learning for the sake of machine learning, right? Some of our most elegant solutions are not necessarily fully based on machine learning, but because we call ourselves a big data team, right? You try to find any tool to kind of solve the problem. So I'd say that skill is to kind of break down the problem and find what the essence of the problem is before going into solution mode. I think in my career, what I've tried to do is essentially in the organizations that you mentioned before, understand what the overarching goals that company is trying to do, and then kind of make sure that I put myself in that space and understand the problem space as best as possible, and then ensure that, we make an impact and kind of find the right solutions. Most of the time, the solutions do end up becoming machine learning or AI-based solutions. But there's different ways to skin a cat. But the number one skill is take a step back and understand the problem as best as possible.
That is, I agree, that is an extremely important skill to have.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a few reasons. One being, you can obviously solve the wrong problem if you just jump in too quickly, or it could not be such a big or effective problem. So you could essentially end up wasting a lot of time chasing ideas and dreams that just don't materialize.
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, when it comes to business, it's like, okay, but you've been busy for 8 months, or how long? What is it? Like, what is the thing on the table? But if you just stood back, like you're saying, understand the problem. I love the phrase you used, like, it made me think of just like really getting into it, surrounding yourself. You say surrounding yourself, I believe, with the problem. Or
immersing yourself.
Immersing yourself in the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that for me is a fantastic way of describing it. So you can completely understand it, so you can solve it.
Yeah.
I guess slightly pivoting.
Yeah.
So you look very active on LinkedIn. You're very active at conferences, and you talk about all things data and AI. So the question is, is there something specific when it comes to AI that you are passionate about?
Well, I think it's the opportunity it holds. That's the big thing for me. I mean, when you look at where we are in the world, Africa, South Africa, and how the world has kind of moved on very quickly on all these other industrialization, and how like technology has kind of catapulted the US and West and all these other places. I think when it comes to AI, this is like a place where we can rapidly close the gap that we have. And my activity on this is to kind of say, let's keep the community alive. Let's inspire the next data scientists to come in and, I didn't know about the word data science before coming into the role. All I knew is that I wanted to build robots. I was intrigued by how robots work and so on. But then I've found myself in the space to say, okay, if you want to know that in the context of a corporate environment, there's this thing called data science and how it is. But my engagement in conferences and so on is to kind of make sure that the community is alive and we learn and share this knowledge, because I do truly believe like AI, machine learning is a way for us to kind of close that, going for a big term again, digital divide that we currently have, and it will be able to help us solve a lot of problems. So that's definitely, and I learn a lot at conferences in terms of how people solving certain problems, have they looked at this problem the same way, and I'll continue to be a contributor in that space.
Fantastic. I think it is such a good thing, and I think it's also it's good to be able to share knowledge, good to be able to learn from others. And I mean, I love the mission in terms of like, how can we use AI, how can we use these technologies to help ourselves, bridge the digital divide. And I mean, again, perform at a level where other countries might have been good at in the past, but we're catching up. We're getting better technologies. We've got certain challenges we're solving. But we're solving it our challenges with the available technology.
Yeah, certainly. I think the big thing is you don't want a situation where everything is an out-of-the-box solution from outside of the continent. We want to make sure that we build a community where we can actually have our own homegrown talent and products that we can say this is Africa's AI and this is what we're doing with it.
And one thing that for me I'm very passionate about is we have so much talent.
Yes.
So much clever engineers and scientists in Africa.
Yeah.
Which obviously portion of them are getting stolen by a lot of international companies.
Yeah.
But that being said, we have the capabilities here to be able to solve it. We don't need to import it from overseas.
Yeah, and I think we can keep them here once they see the conferences and the fact that like there are companies that are doing it. I think the more we can share what we're doing at Vodacom and what we're building, the types of products we're building, and how that is and still on par with what's happening in the rest of Africa and the rest of the world, it will make sure that that talent doesn't leave us, right?
Yeah, I mean, for example, the comment I'd like to make there is just the number of subscribers, for example, the volume of data, the interesting kinds of use cases that you're faced with here are not the same in other countries. Like it would be, for example, there's a lot of prepaid, a lot of postpaid, for example, customers, all those kinds of things. Like in a different country where it's very stable, you'd have a lot of subscribers and it would almost become, I don't want to say word boring, but but very like a specific kind of use cases where a lot more interestingly challenging use cases here.
Definitely,
and variations on how you can make money or how you can provide value to a customer.
Definitely. It just mentioned like the volume of data, how the data looks like from across the African footprint. Definitely the prepaid landscape is way different than what you'd find in any other area. And what we've seen is that with the data that we have, there's a lot we can understand about how people kind of consume products and what are their needs. And there's a lot to solve with the data that we have. And with the models that we can see in the state of the art and what's coming through, if we applied it to this data, I think there will be very good use cases coming from it. We see it with what we derive from M-Pesa, what we derive from the traditional telco business. So yeah, definitely want to keep the talent and make sure that we grow AI for Africa.
On the note, I guess, of the different kinds of use cases and things one can do, so what are some of your top project wins to date?
Well, it's a long list, Pierre.
That's the best answer.
I think we've found a way to kind of commercialize and productionize machine learning in different areas of the business. You find that we've got a very good span across the organization. So I can talk about use cases in our personalization space where we try and make sure that the products that we put in front of the customer are what they want, and we learn from what customers don't buy and what they buy to make sure that we are putting the customer first. There's use cases that we've done in the fraud space, understanding anomalies, detecting whether there's too much of a shift to kind of raise the alarms in the fraud space, and we've seen a lot of cost savings in the Vodacom space when it comes to fraud. We can look at what we've done in the network space, where to put fiber, where to build fiber, how the demographics of people where we're expanding our fiber network. We're expanding now with use cases in the credit space. I mean, we've built up use cases on understanding a customer. A big thing is that we've got a very big unbanked population in the African footprint, and the telco data is the most richest data that you can actually understand about a customer. And we've seen a lot of our competitors, and even internally, we're starting to build to say, what can we build from there? So we've got credit models that we've started building in that space with products relating to prepaid handset financing, airtime advance, and so on and so on. But the idea for us is to say, when we look at an organization and look at all the verticals that it has, where can we plug in these use cases to run? But I think our biggest one for us, it would be our recommendation engine that we've been building over the years. And it's been a big piece of work to basically understand, like, how do we upsell and cross-sell products? How do we make sure that we position the right bundle to you at the right time? And there's a lot of data points that go into this to make sure that we drive a lot of traction and growth and revenue. But like the big thing about like this recommendation engine is that it's been built in such a way that if this model is not performing optimally, you can actually see revenue degradation. So it's something that we're quite proud of, to say that it is a big revenue generator for us. And yeah, those are the types of use cases that we have. The big shiny product now to talk about is on the Gen AI side of things. So we've got a lot of large language model use cases that we're running, integrating that with RPA or automation, where we try to do language understanding on what the customer's telling us, what are they not happy about, and so that we can kind of surface those things. And yeah, there's a lot of ChatGPT-like use cases that are coming up there that we've built up over the time. So, as I say, yeah, very long, vast use cases that I've been working with and the team's been working in. I can't think of anything else. I'm trying to summarize it. There's also use cases in the call center space in terms of like routing,
as well.
Yeah, in terms of how do you route calls, making sure that we reduce the the first-time call resolution ratios and so on. So yeah, a lot that's happening in the use cases.
How I would summarize that actually is machine learning and AI. It's an interesting tool that can be applied to any process where there's enough volume of data to improve it, like get some lift or some improvement in that process. So obviously, it's this thing. Oh well, I've got this magical tool I can apply to anything and get some outcome. Yeah. Now, what do I do with it? Yeah. And that's exactly what you said. Look, there's all these different verticals inside of an organization, all these different areas where you can actually implement it and have implemented it, have gotten a lot of value from implementing in those areas. And it's almost like the biggest win here is the ability to be able to do this. Almost like the fact that we have done it. We have a very mature and robust platform, or multiple platforms that has been developed over time. Obviously, the recommendation being one of the big ones as well. Yeah. To be able to do this, and now what you mentioned, like, look, we've got these use cases in Gen AI. We're really on it. We're really looking at how do we implement it. It speaks to the fact that you're able to be proactive. You're able to move fast with it, probably a lot faster than other organizations. Yeah. So I'm going to say the biggest thing is probably the ability to be able to build new models and capabilities and build new use cases, because then your outcome, like your factory of use case development is so strong that you can, Gen AI comes along, no problem. Let's just start, let's just include it into the bunch and let's go. Yeah. And start deriving value from it. Yeah, no, so definitely. The speed to getting things out, and then obviously it's also a big win in terms of it getting it integrated and adopted in the business. That's like a massive challenge for many organizations, and with a lot of organizations not getting use cases out, having this amount of use cases out and running is actually impressive. Yeah.
I think the big thing for us was like scale, right? Like, how do we make sure that once we build the cookie cutter or the template, how do we scale it? And all these use cases coming in. I mean, just like the final vertical would, for me, I would like be remiss not to mention this, is that in the financial services space, like there's a lot of stuff that we're doing there. And when we started working on like things relating to personalization on the VodaPay platform, how do we do it? We're able to then take what we've learned and from that cookie cutter and kind of scale it and run it. So yeah, we've got a vast array of use cases across the organization.
That is fantastic. So basically, what are your top project wins? All of them. All the different projects.
I would say that maybe I would position it this way to say, if I look at it at project wins, it's I think we've moved away from that. I think the big thing for us is like
product wins.
Yeah, products, and what have we strategically been able to do. I mean, now the big thing for me is that we had so much success in the SA context. Was it, can we scale it to the greater footprint of Vodacom? And the past 3 years have been that, right? Like, how do we make sure that we can take the learnings that we've had in South Africa, scale it to Tanzania, DRC, Lesotho, and Mozambique, and the full footprint. And that's what we've been able to do. For me, that would be like the top win, right? Where we've been able to shift some of the workloads into our cloud environment, which was a very new thing for us to do. And we've been able to do that. on the home front, on the SA side, was that now we've got this new baby called VodaPay. Are we able to kind of push the same types of learnings that we had on the telco business into the financial services business? And we've been able to do that, like helping out in terms of better understanding what are the customers' needs on this new platform, and how do we learn from these customers and make sure that we are able to scale the stuff that we've done before. So for me, the top wins have been, we're sitting on the shoulders of giants, in the sense that our big data environment has been there for a while. So I can't just point to individual use cases. I have to point to like strategic shifting points to say, now we've moved away from just like a traditional batch environment. Now we went to real time. Now it's like, how do we get it integrated to real-time event streaming, and what are the new channels or platforms that we can do. So for me, I'd say the wins are, now we are bimodal, if that's a word, where we are on-prem, on cloud, or hybrid, where we can deploy at any point, and we can decide where we want to kind of do that, and we can lift and shift models and learnings across the whole organization, which is a new thing. And we're able to kind of lift the financial services part of the business and make sure that they don't have to start from scratch in terms of learning and understanding customers. So yeah, those are the wins, I would say. Yeah,
that's actually
products. Yeah.
That's actually fantastic, and I think maybe to contextualize it, like moving it outside of country, it's every country is different. Every country's got different characteristics and capabilities and things there. So that was not an easy challenge. That was actually a massive feat. It's and I don't know if an international audience would necessarily understand, because it's different. It's literally different African countries, like different European countries or different areas. Like it's a completely different ball game trying to make it work within that environment.
Yeah.
So that for me is fantastic. Obviously, I love the maturity that you've described, going from almost, there's certain specific use cases, more experimental over time, getting more mature and productionized, moving to much more real time, and moving to the point where, okay, well, this has worked in this country. Now we need to get it in alternative countries.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful progression. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, quickly ask you on this whole conversation, the hybrid, are there specific benefits that you believe this brings to the table?
Yeah.
Versus not being hybrid, I guess, versus being like specifically
fully
isolated
on-prem,
or like fully on-prem or fully cloud-based?
Well, I think for us, as we've had a lot of investment in our on-prem environment, it's been working very well. So whenever we have a decision of, are we going to go cloud or on-prem, there has to be some convincing factors to say this is why. But I would say the idea of being hybrid is the fact that we're in a space that's like rapidly moving and moving at a very fast pace, right? For us to experiment with large language models, the Gen AI, you can't necessarily immediately then start, tinkering with your on-prem environment to then deal with this new type of technology. You've got this cloud environment that allows you to quickly experiment. What is this large language model? What is this Mistral model? Or how do I bring in all the learnings that we're seeing there? So it's helped us to kind of rapidly prototype and look at newer technologies. And once we've kind of understood that technology, we will then know whether does it run best in our on-prem environment or on our cloud environment, right? So that flexibility. But yeah, there's been a lot of learnings about our journey on being able to move into cloud. But I think a balanced environment is also a very key part of it. And I think being cloud agnostic is also a very key thing that we've kind of learned, because there's different flavors of things. And we've been establishing that to say, use the cloud for what it's good at, and also use on-prem environment for where it works. And 70%, at least from a VSA perspective or Vodacom South Africa perspective, 70% of our workloads work very well on on-prem environment, and it doesn't make sense to actually move them across. But like there will be that 30% to say like, how do we move the needle? How do we make sure that we are using the latest and greatest, and making sure that we making decisions at the right point in time to say, do we add more kit on our on-prem environment or and so on. So flexibility, in summary, I would say,
I agree.
is what it gives you. But yeah, you can't just like. For me, my personal view is like you can't just.
No, you can't. And also, I personally believe, like the tinkering, what you mentioned, I'm not going to go. I mean, just as an example, you have, let's say you've got one of your systems that's generating millions in revenue or additional profit on-prem, and now you want to go and tinker inside of that environment with a new system.
Yeah.
Not really the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Obviously, you can get other hardware and provision it and etc. But like you mentioned, like it's just speed and flexibility and ease of use. Just be able to go, okay, well, let's test it in the cloud environment.
Yeah.
I mean, we can provision it there. Then, as it becomes more important, as it becomes more available, we can start making the decision. What's the trade-off? Like it could be cheap enough to keep on running in the cloud, or it could be too expensive, where it's like a capital investment will make more sense for us to then move it onto on-prem.
Yeah.
So you've got that flexibility to.
And that ability to be able to push traffic onto cloud, push on-prem. A/B test.
And different characteristics.
I've got a new model I've tested out. It's the latest and greatest deep learning model. I mean, now we want to look at like graph recommenders, transformer for recommenders, all these new ways to kind of make recommendations. So obviously now you don't want to immediately then go and get more GPUs to kind of test out whether this works. So spin up the environment, see if it works, start seeing the value. If you see the value, you can also still get a decision point to say, I see the value. Does it mean I need to invest in the kit on-prem or further expand that environment? Like a pragmatic approach.
Very, very, very pragmatic. I love it.
Yeah.
Tell me, if there's, okay, so we can explore this a little bit. Are there any specific challenges that you faced the past year? And then if so, how is it resolved? What lessons have you learned from those challenges?
Yeah, definitely a lot of challenges. I mean, the big thing for us is the expansion. As I said, we're quite a wide spanning team. So there's a lot of demand coming in as different areas of the business start seeing value of working with big data and exploring the use of use cases, then the number of use cases kind of exponentially rises. So it's basically to say, how do we templatize, make it easy to streamline? So that's where we are now at the moment, to kind of reduce the time to market in terms of experimentation and getting models into the environment. Secondly, I think there's a big brain drain in the country in terms of finding the right talent to kind of hit the ground running and making sure. That particular problem, I think we've had many things that we've been doing to kind of deal with that. The one is like, this is why we also have a presence at conferences, so you can meet the talent at those particular conferences. But there's also a view of like, how do we develop the next data scientists? So having a very good internship program, graduate program, that we kind of building up these data scientists that are coming in, and we've got a citizen developer program in the organization, trying to find people that would be good in terms of expanding and becoming data scientists in those areas that we cannot reach, and making it easy for them to kind of learn how to kind of self-serve, obviously within measure with in terms of how those models are. Then I think it's the third thing would be as a challenge is, the reason I speak so much about the pragmatic approach of going into cloud is that we've learned a lot about what it means going into cloud. And from a cloud perspective, what is our cloud strategy? How do we get models into that environment? How do we make use of this behemoth of AWS, Azure, and so on? That has been a big thing for us, making sure that we keep the costs at a minimal. So whenever you're building up a use case, you have to kind of estimate its intended costs and so on. So it's been a very wide-reaching view. So I would say in the past year, those would be our main challenges. Like, how do we scale? and make sure we templatize ourselves to make sure we're servicing across the whole business, making sure that we've got the right talent as we grow this capability in the organization, and then making use of these new tools from a cloud perspective has been a big thing.
The intended use case per use case cost made me also think of intended or estimated outcomes and value that the tool is expected to generate at least.
Yeah, definitely. You have to kind of load test and see whether this bright idea you have and is going to actually outweigh the costs of actually running it. Yeah.
I love what you mentioned as well. Like that's why being at conferences, so you can solve the problem of the talent, the scaling, like the business now comes in. We want all these new use cases. We've got all these potential ideas, all these potential things we want to test. And how do you manage that, especially in a big organization, and to be able to service that, but also find the gems and also move the needle on the thing that's going to make a difference in the organization?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is, I always say to new people coming into the team is, from a Vodacom perspective, the biggest thing going for us, the reason why we've got this span problem and we've got a lot of demand coming in is because there's a lot of trust from the leadership of the organization. I mean, our group CEO is a big champion of make sure we use the data. I think he's got a very good solid view to say our data is our oil, and this is what makes sure that our ship is running. So definitely the demand comes in from all areas of the business to say how do I make sure that I'm able to plug in and make use of this tool. The big thing for us is it has to drive value. Lots of data science teams or areas would work on very airy-fairy fancy use cases, but the value part needs to kind of come in. So we kind of prioritize based on that, and value could be in terms of cost savings, it could be in terms of new impact, it could be strategic, but it needs to make sense. And that's how we kind of scale to say, okay, this one can go at the back of the queue, since it sounds like it does not have does not align to our immediate objectives and the objectives of the organization. So that's basically how we manage it, and we keep scaling and trying to find ways to kind of automate and get things out in a more streamlined, making sure that, I think a big thing we've been doing in the past 6 months is making sure that a lot of our real-time models are running through a CI/CD pipeline. So if there's a new use case, you're not kind of doing everything from scratch as if you're developing a real-time use case from the beginning. So we streamline, make sure that it works, and we shorten the time to going into production, which we've been able to do. If I harken back to 6 years ago at Vodacom, getting a model into production would be 3 to 6 months if you're lucky. I think now we're talking about weeks. Or in the last quarter, I have seen some things go into production on a week-on-week basis. Data monetization is a big thing for us to say, how do we monetize data and make sure that we serve our customers best? And the big thing for us in terms of prioritizing all this demand is making sure that value sits at the core of prioritization.
Oh no, 100%. That's fantastic. I mean, obviously, the speed at which you're able to deliver the CI/CD on a real-time system. I mean, you definitely don't want to be running these things from scratch.
Yeah.
No, 100%. All that makes a lot of sense. The one thing I keep on thinking of as well is there's a lot of different challenges when it comes to obviously getting something into operationalized and getting into production. Obviously, there's technical challenges, but then there's also people challenges. There's the aspect of getting buy-in and managing change and things like that. How do you deal with the buy-in and change management and
within the
within the organization?
Yeah, well, I should say is I harken back to a point I made. Strategically in the organization, everyone has seen from the leadership to say that this is a strategic lever, a pulley that we need to use, and we get a lot of buy-in just based on that from our exco and leadership that we get at a group level. And but how do we kind of get that change into different areas? I think for me, the conversation needs to be a lot more shifted. This is how we do it, basically to say, if you were able to predict this in your area, what would it mean for you, right? Like if you were to predict that this customer is actually a detractor in your space and you handle customer complaints and so on earlier on, and you want to address this, how would it work in your space? And you get the buy-in from a business perspective from there before the machine learning and the AI and so on. It's to say, this is the problem that you have. If you proactively or preemptively are able to solve this problem, what would it mean for you? And that's, for me, what makes the conversation easier in those areas for them to then say, okay, I think I'm on board with the concept of getting you guys to work on this particular problem. And definitely we've got this decentralized view to say, we don't want data scientists sitting in a dungeon coming up with great ideas. We want them integrated in the business, understanding the problems, being part of the solution building. So a lot of the data scientists that are in my team are plugged in, and they are part of the world when it comes to the call center or COPS area. They'll be there understanding what is the big pain point in this area. So whatever we work on should never be, we've just come up because I read up this Facebook paper that says it's a good idea. Yes, we do that, but that's in now implementing for the actual problem. So for me, that's how the change management becomes easier, where the business buys into the idea of solving the problem, because you're not solving a fictitious or hypothetical problem. You're solving the problem that they're actually most worried about. And yeah, and the notion of like AI is here to take over my job, it's now turned on its head to say, actually, AI is actually here to make me more efficient and make sure that we kind of meet our KPIs. So that's the change management.
But that's fantastic, actually. As you're saying that, I keep on thinking, it's like, it's literally going to that person or that team or that team leader and saying, listen, let's talk detractor. Let's say for example, churn management. You normally have a way of, or there's ways and means of dealing with it, and there's ways and means. I mean, let's say, obviously a company strives to never drop the ball, but something happened.
Yes.
There was bad coverage, unfortunately, for this person or whatever, and they're like, okay, now stop it, I'm done. I'm going to move on to another network. Now, obviously, if you were to go to that team and be like, listen, usually we catch 1 out of 10 people who churn ahead of time. Most of the time, it's only after the fact, and then it's very hard getting them back on the network. And then if anything, we get like another one coming back, but whatever the case may be. But now, if we were able to catch 3 people instead of 1 person before they leave, what would that mean? What could you do with that? How would we work with that?
Yes.
So that's like the whole thing. So what the model does is it helps you do 3 times more, 2 times more, a number of people you can potentially flag and figure out, okay, let's go do something about this. What could you do with that? And I agree with you. Then it's like, oh, hold on. We could actually put in more processes here where we talk to them ahead of time, where we figure out what the real issue is. And especially if it's a high value customer, what could we do to retain that customer?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So then it's like, okay, cool. Now we've got the buy-in. Okay, we're gonna give it to you. Yeah. We're gonna now go off, build the models, do the technical things, and then deliver that for you and bring them in part of that process. Yeah. And then probably they're gonna be like, how's this gonna work? I want to learn more. Yeah. I want to get more experience, and we can.
And that's how you get the buy-in. The big thing is like speak the language, drink the Kool-Aid of that area, and understand what their challenge is, and then it makes it easy for you to implement.
Completely agree with that. That's like that's I actually don't know of any other way, to be honest. I feel like that is the way to make it work.
Yeah, that's the...
People miss it somehow. I don't know, maybe it's a technical training, maybe it's other things. Sometimes they miss like a lot of data scientists would miss that. Yeah. But that is the way to then eventually, because otherwise you might end up building something, be like, it's obvious, we're gonna make so much money in this area. And they're gonna be like, what? Like, how is this going to help us? Instead of like from the start, getting them on that journey, being clear with the business speak. So in the beginning, we briefly touched upon the Africa and, building out a capability here and participating in the community and growing the community for Africa. And one of the things is, how would you say, being in Africa, how do you drive the digital transformation agenda in Africa?
Yeah, I think it's something I'm very passionate about, which you could tell in my earlier responses to that. The way we drive it, I think internally at Vodacom, we've identified that there's a lot of roles that are, let's say, adjacent to data science and data engineering, right? Like people that have a mathematical background, people that have some development background, or people that are very statistical, have a statistical background and so on. How do we get those people closer to understanding this new world and the tools that we have? So one of the digital drive or agenda that we have there would be the citizen program that we have there. My view in terms of what we've done from an AI perspective is there's a lot to learn, right? There's the development part, there's the mathematical part, there's the experimentation part, there's like how do you merge that into the business context and so on. So what we try to do is kind of jam pack that into a program that people from different parts in the organization to kind of go on and learn the skill of like, how do I use Python? How do I get machine learning? And we're finding that there's a lot of interest happening there. I think we've got over 200 data scientists now that we've trained in the group, that citizen data scientists that we've trained through this, that are now taking it to the next level to say, now you've intrigued my interest. I've I've done like a Kaggle style competition. I've now built a project. Now, what is the next step? So we've got like nano degrees that we're getting them enrolled in. We're partnering with universities to say like, this is like the right course for you to kind of do, making sure that they are funded for that. So the citizen program from internally at Vodacom is like that big thing for us to kind of grow that. I think the next part of that, and this is something internally in the organization that got recognition last year, to say that like a lot of good things are coming from this, where we kind of empowering people. When we talk about transformation, we're not talking about we're going to get new people to come in and do the job. We're going to also actually build people to kind of transition and come into this space. So the citizen program has been a big one for us, and we continue to kind of develop that and grow that. A big passion for me is to say like, that works well in the Vodacom context, right? Although it is, we've got citizens in Egypt, Ethiopia, Kenya, the full spectrum, Tanzania, DRC, Lesotho, Mozambique, citizens everywhere that we're kind of bringing up and making sure that we can make the skills available, because in those markets and even in our markets, very hard to find like a very skilled data scientist working in that space. You kind of have to build from the ground up and get those skills going. So we've done that from the citizen program. The big thing for me looking forward is to say, now that we've built this, what are we doing externally outside of the organization? So Vodacom's got a very good program called Code Like a Girl, where we helping out girls in high school to kind of start programming and so on from a technology perspective. The next step for us is kind of get these citizen high schoolers that would kind of get interested into what's Kaggle, what are these different tools earlier on than later, so that they can, choose a career path in this space. And for me, that's my role in kind of getting this digital transformation agenda going. Also, contributing to a lot of these programs, conferences, and seeing how do we get more meetups. I think we don't have enough meetups in the SA context, and getting people more involved. So with my team, I basically have a target to say, like, people in my team, you need to speak at a conference, you need to kind of show the work that we do. I think there's something we're exploring also to say we need to create like an engineering blog where we talk about some of the solutions, obviously without divulging the secret the secret sauce here and there. But the idea is like, these are the things that you can do with the technology that we are doing, and making sure that we kind of build a community around it. And for me, that will start ensuring that we make the transformation agenda. Finally, we've got like collaborations that we're starting to look at, where we work with government agencies externally as a service to say, yeah, this is what we can provide as the big data and AI team at Vodacom to solve some of the challenges that we have as a country. And I think we've got a long history of doing that before as Vodacom, and would like to bring it into this AI space. We say, these are the tools that we have. How do we kind of make sure that we're not only building for internally, but also making them available and utilized outside. So that's the agenda that we have. But I'm really, really proud of the fact that we've, in the last 2 years, trained around 200 citizen data scientists. The idea is to get it to around 400 data scientists in the next 2 years, that we're kind of building up and getting through these programs. And some of them are already now starting to do these nano degrees and going into university, formalized university programs. And the reason why we think we need the citizen program first is kind of to jumpstart the passion and the need for it, instead of to say, if you want to be a data scientist, here's this master's program that you and then it looks all daunting for you to do. But if we start you from the ground up, like, this is Python, this is what Python can do, here's a small project, we walk you through it, you learn the basics, and you start seeing, oh, this is what more I can do. We give you a couple of data sets to say, learn from this data set, try get a better accuracy, take on some of the challenges on Kaggle. Then you've got that, passion built up in the person. And once they're done with the citizen program, they can then further their knowledge with that baseline having been covered to say, I really want to be a data scientist. Because there's a lot outside of the fancy AI and machine learning part of it. There's a lot to kind of grasp in terms of concepts and building. Yeah.
Sure, that is fantastic. I must say, the 400 data scientists, 200 to 400 citizen data scientists, Code Like a Girl initiative. These are fantastic initiatives, and 100%. It's such a great way of, one, people understand it better, they understand what it's about better, so they can apply it in their lives better, or at least they can come to the center of excellence in the area and like with ideas and things, because now they understand it better. But also then just solving problems and going into a career path which is in high demand worldwide, which means that the more people you train up, you might sit with a problem on your hands soon, where some of these people are leaving for data science jobs at some point. But I hope it doesn't happen. But at the same time, that's then elevating what people are capable of doing. Maybe, for example, somebody was in a different job role and then now progress into a very high in-demand technical role, and they love it and they enjoy it. What's better?
Yeah. There's what's like, it's not only about just building the person only to stay, right? It's about transforming the country, transforming the continent.
Yes.
So whether that person builds themselves up and leaves the organization, that skill is transferred, and we kind of growing the environment. I do think what we also try to do is kind of make sure that it's compelling enough that they stay, right?
Of course.
They work on more interesting problems.
Well, again, I think we've spoken about, like, there's a lot of interesting problems inside of Vodacom, and there's a lot of interesting challenges when it comes to that kind of scale and that kind of engineering. Okay, and then we're going to finish off with an interesting one. Are there any big roadblocks that you believe stop projects from becoming successful?
Definitely a big one in the space. It's in our name, data, big data. Garbage in, garbage out is a big thing, right? And always very good thing to say, here's the problem, we can solve it, but do you have the data to solve it? Is the data in a good enough quality for you to be able to solve that particular problem? Do we have the data streams to actually productionize and build that solution? So for me, that would be something that I kind of put at the forefront to say you need to make sure you've got all your data governance and quality in place so that you have got a very good data lake and are not moving into a data swamp where there's like very disparate data sets that never get used, never get touched, and so on. So I'd say for me, that would be a big part. The second one would be like in terms of integration. Very great to have a model that you've built up, but like if it's not intertwined and ingrained in the process of doing business, then like what's the point of the model, right? I can predict very well that this customer is not happy with us, but it's not integrated into our channels where we can understand that we're dealing with a frustrated customer or any other thing, right? Making sure that you've got your integration across all the touch points that you would want. So for me, those are the two things, but like I'd hearken a lot to say, garbage in, garbage out, and data would be the big thing for us. And I think at Vodacom, it's something that we've been building up a lot to make sure that our data lake and our data warehouse is in a state that you can make sure that you trust the data and you can use the data for our use cases.
Yes, when you said garbage in, garbage out, it doesn't work if it's garbage in.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% correct, and those are all things that I agree. It leads to it's big blockers that you need to solve if you want to have successful projects.
Yep.
And Nkululeko, thank you so much. That concludes our show for today. I mean, by all means, we might have another one. We'll see how it goes in the future, and then maybe when you come visit in Cape Town again, we can have it at the new studio, which is coming along. But I want to say thank you so much. Thank you for joining us, and I really appreciate your insights and really appreciate having this conversation with you.
No, thank you very much, Pierre. I think it was an interesting conversation. A lot of reflecting. We do this day in, day out. It's very interesting where we step back and reflect on the stuff that we do. But yeah, thanks for having me and looking forward to the next interaction.